Jonathan, before we start recording, where did you get that amazing coffee mug? It's beautiful. It's a work of art.
Gosh, thank you. My sister-in-law, there was a Christmas present a couple years ago. I'll tell her you admire it.
It's like something that should be sitting in the Mingay.
1, 2, 3. I know we have other folks that will be here, so I'm just giving it a few minutes for Anne and Ujoko were both here this morning earlier, so I expect they're both going to come to this meeting. Belle, did Vernon RSVP?
I just let Vernon and Anne into the meeting, so.
Oh, perfect. Good morning again, Anne. Hi there, Vernon.
Good morning, everybody.
All righty. Let's give Udoka another minute or two. Oh, it's 10:02. Okay. Well, we have enough people to get started, I think.
Right.
So, is that correct, Belle?
That is correct, Janet.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right. Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Janet Poutre, and I'm the chair of the City of San Diego Commission for Arts and Culture. We're going to do a quick roll call to confirm commissioner attendance. And when I call your name, please unmute yourself and say present. Commissioner Smith?
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Nwana? Commissioner Bossler?
Here.
Commissioner Hughes?
Present.
Commissioner Frank?
Present.
Thank you. And Commissioner Meza?
Present.
Thank you. All right, your attendance has been noted. Also joining us today are from the stars of the arts and culture staff, including Executive Director Jonathan Gluss, Chief of Civic Arts Strategies, Christine Jones, Interim Senior Arts and Culture Funding Manager, Carla Centeno Aguirre, Senior Public Art Manager, Chuck Miller, Project Manager, Belle Reza, Civic Art Project Manager, Laura Bullock, as well as representatives from the City Attorney's Office. Welcome, everybody, and thank you for coming to this Executive Committee meeting. Before we get into today's agenda, I'm going to call on Belle to run down some of the guidelines for today's meeting. Belle?
Good morning, everyone. As you've noticed, we are now using Zoom webinars, so we're just going to go over a couple quick things. This is we are now using webinar. This is an effort to provide greater accessibility. Members of the public may now join the meeting as webinar attendees in order to provide public comment in real time. Committee members, city staff, and authorized presenters are attending the meeting as panelists, and the meeting will function for them identically to a typical Zoom meeting. As a refresher, please note the buttons on the control bar. At the bottom of the Zoom window, the camera icon is to activate your video, microphone is to mute and unmute. Please remember to stay muted when you are not talking. Please keep your chat window open at all times, as you will be using the chat to signal when you'd like to speak. We do recognize that there is a hand raising function. However, we request that you type speak in the chat window for the record. Please refrain from using the meeting chat for anything other than signaling that you'd like to speak in order to comply with Brown Act. Thanks. Janet?
Thank you, Bill. Do we have any non-agenda public comment today? The public was invited to submit public comment on agenda and non-agenda items via a web form accessible through the agenda and the Commission's website. Members of the public may also join this meeting as webinar attendees. If members of the public have submitted comments in writing via the web form, staff will read aloud public comments submitted, and I will call on Belle to read any non-agenda public comment or to call on any attendee who would like to provide comments.
Thanks, Janet. No public comment was submitted. However, to those members of the public in attendance, please click to the button to raise your hand to indicate that you'd like to comment. I will enable you to speak and send you a prompt to unmute yourself in order. When I call your name, please state name for the record, and you will have 3 minutes to provide comment, after which you will be placed on mute again. If you are joining via phone, please press *9 to raise your hand. I will call on you by the last 4 digits of your phone number. When I call on you, press *6 to unmute yourself. Please raise your hand now if you'd like to provide any non-agenda public comment, and I see one. Okay, one moment.
Hi, this is Peter Kaminsky, Balboa Park Cultural Partnership. My apologies to the members of the Policy and Funding Committee. They may be a little repetitive here today. While the year has just started, I have a number of items to update the Executive Committee regarding the Balboa Park Cultural Partnership. For a quick pick-me-up this morning, especially given everything that has gone on recently, I encourage you to visit loveinyourpark.com. This was not done by anyone at Balboa Park. This was not done by any coordination at Balboa Park. It was an individual community group. This amazing work product landed in our feeds earlier this week. It's a unique San Diego video, profiles Balboa Park while echoing a phenomenally positive message for our park and arts and culture. I would encourage you to share it widely. Second, as always, we encourage you and anyone watching to engage with new and existing council members about the importance of arts and culture, a discussion that will be critically important as the budget process continues. And finally, some forward-looking plans. As a result of some strategic planning efforts last year, the Cultural Partnership has launched 3 new task force activities. These task forces are activities that our board members, members of the Cultural Partnership, undertake with great passion. First is a discussion regarding creating a one voice experience plan for Balboa Park. While in its very early stages, we feel like this will have the opportunity to create a unique and a very important focus for the park. Second, and within that effort, and also an opportunity to share resources on elements such as equity and diversity as an overlay, called the IDEA: Inclusion, Diversity, Equity and Access. That will frame the experience plan in addition to helping many of our member organizations navigate this very important work. And finally, a task force has been formed to identify how the resources of the Cultural Partnership and our members may be brought to bear to assist organizations who are having difficulty at these times, both within the park and throughout the city, for potential shared services. We think this is really important moving forward, and the Cultural Partnership is somewhat uniquely positioned to deliver that. The scope of this group is also being considered. Thank you very much for your time today, and thank you for everything you do.
Janet, you're on mute.
Is that all our public comment?
That's it.
All right, great. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to chair's reports. Do we have any public comment regarding this item? Belle, if you want to invite anybody who wants to provide comment or has submitted some.
Sure. Please raise your hand, or if by phone, please press *9 if you'd like to comment. And seeing none, Janet.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, in terms of commission business, the big thing to talk about today, or that I am thinking about, is our planning our retreat next week. Not next week. Is it next week? Yeah. On the 22nd, and what we're going to be doing for how we're going to be planning our work going forward, and recognizing the environment that we're operating in and how we can best serve our constituency and the city in these times. So we'll be talking later about that agenda. Also, just for those of you who were not at Policy and Funding or aren't on that committee, the panel selections to review the applications for FY22 OSP and CCSD. The panelists are being selected, and that is moving forward. We're gearing up for that FY22 cycle. It seems like a long way away, but before we know it, it'll be upon us. Let's see. I think that's really all I have to report out right now. I think I'd like to ask for a quick update from any committee chairs that would like to brief us. Belle, is there any public comment for the reports from our committee chairs?
Please raise your hand if you'd like to comment. *9 if you're dialing in by phone. Seeing none, Janet.
Thank you. All right, first I'd like to invite Ann Bossler. She's the chair of our Policy and Funding Committee to tell us about the work of that committee.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Commissioner Boutray. So this morning we met at 8:30 and our committee took action recommending to the commission a slate of commission advisory panelist candidates that Janet just mentioned. Those are the folks that are going to evaluate the proposals submitted in response to the fiscal year 22 OSP and CCSD request for proposals. The other thing that we had an opportunity to do is to learn a little bit more through a presentation by Jonathan Gless regarding the arts and culture nonprofit relief using pre-programmed funds that were to support fiscal year 21 OSP and CCSD for those folks that were not able to use their funds, and how we're going to be requesting from City Council that that be reallocated. And my understanding is that as of now, that amount is approximately $271,000. Thank you very much, Commissioner Boutray.
Thank you, Commissioner Bossler. Alrighty, then I'd like to invite Ben to share anything of note from public art.
Yes. Let me just get my windows. Okay. For the December presentation or meeting, we reviewed and approved a schematic artwork proposal for Mira Mesa Community Park by Kate Clark. For the January meeting, we will have 2 action items for the commission agenda. They are the artist selection panelists for the Bayer Park Public Art Project in the South Bay, and artist selection panelists for Here Comes the Neighborhood in Encanto. So those are the 2 items that I wanted to share.
Pardon me. Thank you, Ben. I really like the presentation on the Mira Mesa.
Yeah, it's a very beautiful piece. I agree with you.
Yeah. Okay, Tyler, is there anything you'd like to report from advocacy and outreach?
Excited to have an advocacy committee meeting scheduled for next Friday, the 15th. Normally we go on the first Friday of the month, but because of the holiday falling on the first this month, we're pushed a little later. So anyway, we're going to be focusing on, as Commissioner Bossler mentioned, there's going to be some reallocation that goes to City Council, and so advocacy is going to be doing some push on that with our elected officials and planning out our 2022 funding season and advocacy efforts, especially with so many new elected officials. We want to get in there and stake our claim, make our case for long-term support.
Very good. Thanks, Tyler. Alrighty, Commissioner Engagement Ad Hoc Committee, that would be Udoka or Rebecca. Rebecca, do you have anything to report out since Udoka is not joining us?
I do not. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, next up, we have an action item here, which is basically our usual action item, which is approving the agenda of our commission meeting. The only difference in this case is that our commission meeting is designed to be more of a discussion meeting than the usual kind with action items and things like that. So before we move on to discussing that, I wanted to ask Belle, is there any public comment regarding this issue?
We did not receive any, but those in attendance, if you'd like to comment, please raise your hand by phone, *9. Doesn't look like it, Janet.
All right, great. Thank you. Okay, everybody had the agenda sent to them. Everyone received it, I hope, and had a chance to review it. Would anybody like to start our ability to discuss this by making a motion to approve the agenda? And if you would, type speak in the chat window and verbally state your name and make your motion. Okay, Tyler,
I motion that we approve the agenda.
thank you. And Rebecca?
And I second.
Thank you. Alrighty, great. Now, let's have a discussion. And I'll just start by asking if anybody has any questions. Anne, you've got your hand up. Let's go.
Could we please put the agenda up so that the public can see it as well while we discuss it? Thank you so much.
That's a great idea. Thank you. Can you do that, Bill?
Yes, I can. 1 second.
All right, good. Good call, Anne. Thank you. Here we go.
Okay, can you see it?
Yeah, yes, I make the people smaller and I can. Can you see it okay, Anne? If you make the people smaller, slide that thing in the middle.
How's that?
Yeah.
Was it not good at picking up my full screen?
No.
Belle, if you look at the bottom right corner, it's like 0 to 100%. You can just make it bigger within that box. Your cursor just below where your cursor is. For those of us getting older with trifocals.
That would be all of us, I think, man.
Oh,
Well, it's on the bottom right side, the little plus sign. If you click that, click the little plus sign, and that'll zoom it in. There you go.
Yeah,
is that better?
I think so. Yes, and everything. If you need to crop it, you could crop the welcoming comments out because there's really nothing to say about that. So the rest is the meat there for number 4 and on. All right, great. Thank you, Anne, for suggesting this. Now that we're talking about this, does anybody have any comment or question about this agenda? Anne?
Commissioner Poutre, if you wouldn't mind just giving maybe a 15-second on kind of from your perspective what each of these A through E would encompass, I think that might be really helpful.
Okay, and I also note Rebecca had asked to speak as well.
That was exactly my question. Thank you,
Oh.
Anne.
Okay, great. Alrighty, so Jonathan and I started thinking about this, I thought, what are the big issues that are coming up for us? You know, we infrastructure wise, that Department of Cultural Affairs really like to, you know, keep that seed moving towards fruition. I think that would be an important way for the city to own and recognize the importance of our creative community, and to enable us to better serve that community, really. And to that end, the cultural plan, which would, I think, have to be perhaps the first thing on the agenda at the Department of Cultural Affairs. That's key, and it's something we've all talked about many times. I'm frustrated by the fact that we are unable to use social media adequately to let people know. I mean, we have this rinky-dink way of, you know, Tracy or me or somebody else sharing something that I don't know, Leticia shared from the, it's just crazy that we don't have an actual social media outlet campaign strategy, I guess is a better word even. So that's the thing I'm frustrated by. So I'd like to discuss that and find out why it's like that, and enlist my fellow commissioners in the groundswell to get that fixed so that we can use social media. I mean, look at how effective it can be, is all I will say. We've also talked last year, we started talking about taking apart the funding program and removing some of the old fashioned barriers and taking a look at the language and analyzing what ways we are making our funding program the best it can be, the most accessible to everybody, the most diverse and inclusive. And so that's something else, we talked about getting rid of the algorithm. People talked about getting rid of AOI, all kinds of pieces of that program. And we were encouraged by our listening from constituents. We were encouraged to do this, to take this thing apart. And so, that, okay, it's one thing to talk about it. Now we have to talk about how do you do that? When are we going to do that? Who's going to do that? And what's it going to look like? So that's another piece of it. And then for me, really, underneath all of this is this question, we don't know what kind of budget we're going to get for arts and culture funding in the coming year. We have new leadership at the top of the city that we're unfamiliar with their deepest desires in terms of this situation with pandemic and the homeless situation that we're experiencing. I mean, it just all of it. So we may not have any money to give to speak of this coming year. So what are we then? Aren't we just a funding thing for the city? I mean, this is how people think of us, is like we're about writing checks. Well, I don't think so. I don't think most of you think so. But I think that's a discussion that we ought to have so that we do all have a sense of what our role can be minus the money. If we're not the sugar daddies, what else can we do? Obviously, we want to support our creative community, and it'd be great if we could just say, oh, we know we'll have the money. Well, we're not there yet. So that's where my thinking was around these priorities. Did I answer your question, Anne and Rebecca? Do you have any comment or any of that you want to comment on, or I'm just inviting Tyler?
I think this is fantastic. I love this. Back when I was still working in the nonprofit world, I went through the Fieldstone Foundation Executive Learning Group. And one of the things they taught us was to take big questions, the 30,000 foot question, pull that up to the top, and everything flows from that. And I think we should put item E at the top, because everything else flows from that. What is our role as a civic body? Is it just funding, or is it more expansive? And I hope it's more expansive. So I would recommend that we start with that foundational question, what is our role? And then take everything else that comes out of that. What is our place in the Department of Cultural Affairs? How are we going to move towards a cultural plan? What are we going to do with social media, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? I think everything needs to flow from that fundamental question. So I wanted to make that recommendation. And then afterwards, after the meeting, I think we should all go out for tattoos and get Civic Sugar Daddy tattooed somewhere.
I'm nobody's daddy, but thank you, Tyler. Rebecca, did you have a comment?
I just wanted to echo that. Thank you, Tyler. Sort of the Simon Sinek, like start with the why, right? So the foundational question, who are we? Why do we do this? What's the purpose? And especially for new commissioners, making sure that even if we're not going to well, let me frame this another way. Even if we're going to expand on what's already in writing, just making sure that we also know that we also answer to something in writing. It's in your big commissioner binder of what is sort of the role of an art commissioner for the city of San Diego. So making sure that we at least have eyes on that at the same time that we want to expand on those different ideas. And then a question doesn't need to necessarily be discussed today, but you brought this up, Janet, like, does the Department of Cultural Affairs come first and then the cultural plan come from that? Or is a cultural plan, my understanding is cultural plan is going to roll forward, regardless. And so is it sort of what's the cart before the horse sort of mode? And then last thing on social media, I remember back probably, I don't know, maybe even 3 or 4 years ago, we had a presentation from the communications department of the city and had a very specific sort of strategy on this is how commissioners can use social media, but it had to go through the city's communication department. So this would also be a good time to figure out what, especially with new and amazing communications people coming in, it'd be really good to see about how we can actually partner and leverage resources that way as well. So I'm just more about like, how do we make sure that we're maximizing things that are already in place and rolling from there as opposed to recreating the wheel.
Agreed. Thank you, Rebecca. Good call. In terms of the social media, I agree with you. I know that the city is paranoid about having a message, but so maybe what that looks like is we need to have somebody who is actually a social media person. I mean, the city obviously is usually using social media for other departments. And so I guess I just want us to have our piece of that. Not that it's dependent on whether you or I happen to see something and share it, you know?
Agreed. And that's where I would go back to Tyler's really great sort of framing all of this and starting with the why. Sort of why are we trying to communicate more? You know, we all have our ideas on that, but really having a strategy behind it as opposed to starting to do more.
I agree. Good, thanks. And I totally agree with your idea that E should be A, and everything flows from, because that really is the philosophical question that will drive policy and behavior and understanding of what goes forward. So let's see, Tyler, I believe you made the motion to accept this agenda. So I think the way it's done is we have a motion and a second. It's on the table. If you wanted to amend your motion, I think you can do that and we vote on the amended vote. We need a second of your amendment and then we vote on the amended agenda. Is that correct? John Dwyer?
That should work.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
so,
All righty. And by the way, does anybody else have any other input on the rest of the agenda? You know, you mentioned that big Arts Commission binder, Rebecca, and if we were having this meeting someplace physical, I would pay a reward of $5 to everybody who had theirs to bring with. Okay, so nobody has any other changes to make or comments to make on this? Okay, I see none. Then Tyler, who made this motion, did you want to
yes,
restate?
I will amend my motion to swap the order of items from E to A and use the fundamental question as our starting point.
Okay, thank you. And do we have a second to that amendment? Anne?
I'll second it, but I also have my binder right here. So I was giving my address at another point for my $5. Thank you so much.
But mine's bigger than yours.
Oh, I bet it is.
Jeez. When's the last time I looked at it? At least I knew where it was. Okay, so we had a motion, amended motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on this? Okay, seeing none, then I will go ahead and take the vote. I will call your name. You will unmute yourself and say yay, nay, or abstain. Commissioner Smith?
Yay.
Thank you. Commissioner Bosler,
Yay.
thank you. Commissioner Hughes,
Yay.
thank you. Commissioner Frank,
Yay.
thank you. And Commissioner Meza,
Yay.
thank you. And my vote is a yay. Terrific. Looking forward to it. All right. Next up are staff reports. Do we have any public comment for those?
Any comment, please raise your hand. *9 to raise your hand if you're by phone. It doesn't look like it, Janet.
All right, sounds good. That means we don't have to wait another minute to hear from our Executive Director, Jonathan Gluss, and staff reports. Go ahead, Jonathan.
Thank you, Janet. First, I have to say, I'm just having a great time listening to you all this morning. I look forward to the retreat in 2 weeks. I do have a question about that, Janet. We didn't discuss facilitation. Excuse me. When you and I talked a few days ago, you asked me to look into facilitators. So far, I'm not finding anyone. I'm happy to still work on it, but I'd just like to put out there, are you committed to, put the question out there, are you committed to having an outside facilitator, or would you like to run the meeting as a normal meeting?
I'm not committed to it. I think there's value, especially when we are talking about philosophical things. It's nice to have somebody guide the conversation so we don't get in the weeds. And sometimes I feel in situations like that, I am busier conducting traffic and don't always get to be as much a part of the discussion as I would like. So I'm not committed to an outside agitator, but if we had one for at least part of the time, I think that would be helpful. I see we have comments from Commissioner Bosler and Commissioner Smith.
Did you say an outside agitator? Is that what you said?
Yeah, it's just being, I meant facilitator, of course.
So the woman who facilitated the last retreat, I can't think of her name right now.
Danelle.
Did folks feel like she was somebody that we would want to have again? Is she available? I see John.
She's not available.
She's not available. Okay.
Rebecca, you wanted to speak? I just want you to know, Rebecca, that your name came up in this context.
Thank you. Well, and I do lots of facilitation for other organizations and their staff retreats, but I would agree with you, Janet. We need definitely an external voice and presence to keep us all in line. And Jonathan, if it's helpful for you, just because this is the world that I live into, I'm happy to join you in trying to find some facilitators. I just feel it's really important for us to have somebody else there for us.
Neutral party. Okay.
Yeah.
Tyler?
And I can connect with you, Jonathan, later on that.
Thank you, Rebecca, for that offer. Tyler?
I was just going to recommend either Catherine Martin from Santa Barbara or Tom Hall, former executive director of the Old Globe, who works with the Fieldstone Foundation as a facilitator. Tom is, I went through his courses and I found him to be extremely knowledgeable and really able to draw out good thoughts from folks.
Oh, good. Thank you for that suggestion. Jonathan, I hope that's helpful.
It's very helpful. Thank you. Rebecca, just for the record, I want you to know that was a setup to try to get you to facilitate, but understood. So
yeah,
I'll reach out to both
I'm
you
one
and
of the
Tyler.
I'm one of the inside agitators, so not appropriate.
Got it.
Because when I term off in the future someday, happy to come back and I will do it pro bono. How about that? I'm on the record.
Fabulous.
And actually,
Fabulous.
Jonathan, thinking of that, I do know a couple of folks that I would just in this season, and people who do care about our work would probably be able to do it, for us at a greatly reduced cost, but also it's their wheelhouse. So let me make some calls then this afternoon.
Great. Thank you.
And even if it's only for, a couple hours, not the entire thing, to set us off in the beginning, that would be helpful, I think. Great. Thank you, everybody. Okay. Tyler, did I catch every one of your requests to speak? Okay. Jonathan, continue. You were
Um,
asking about you were talking about the retreat.
Yes, ma'am. The other comment I'd like to make about the retreat agenda is under staff. I've asked Christina Peralta to join us. Just a reminder, Christina Peralta is the Deputy Chief Operating Officer to which I report. She's the DCOO for Neighborhood Services, which is comprised of libraries, parks, arts and culture, special events. So I've asked her to join us to hear some of your conversation, but also, especially your priorities, but also to convey anything from the Chief Operating Officer in regards to FY22. So what is the lens that the city is looking at FY22? We did not invite anybody from the mayor's office. That is possible if you would like someone to join us for a small amount of time. Let me rephrase that, Janet. I'm happy to put the ask in.
Okay, that seems like one of those chicken soup kind of things, you know, it couldn't hurt.
Okay, I'll put the ask in. With that, I'm very focused on your agenda. So no other staff report today.
All right, thank you very much. Sorry, Commissioner Bossler.
So I'm curious, I think it's a great suggestion to have somebody from the mayor's office. Out of curiosity, would they be willing to maybe let us know their priorities or their thinking around arts and culture, given where we are with everything? That might be helpful to have it be informative as well as instructive for them, if possible.
I was advised just yesterday of the name of the team member who is the arts liaison. So I would reach out to him, and because the mayor did have an arts platform, I would just ask him to kind of formally talk about the platform.
That would
sound
be
good, Anne?
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Yes, that sounds good to me too. All right. Well, cool. Who's bringing the donuts? Jonathan, thank you very much. I'm sure we'll be speaking again about this agenda and the retreat coming up on the 22nd. Rebecca, I hope you have a wonderful time. I know it's a secret and surprise for somebody special, but we'll miss you. And everybody else, thank you for coming today. Appreciate all of you. And I will see you all on the 22nd. At our annual retreat. I think that might be a casual Friday dress code for that too, is appropriate. Okay, everybody, well, have a great week. Everything positive from here on out, okay?
Okay.
Bye, thanks for
Bye-bye.
coming.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Good to
Bye-bye.
see you.
Good to see you all. Bye.